kick off part 2 of our Foley Mega Show with Lesley Gahagan. She is joining us virtually from her office down in Foley. We, of course, are here in the Moon Room at Druid City Brewing Company. Lesley, great to virtually meet you. I want to go ahead and let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do down in Foley.
Hi, Justice Director for the City of Foley, and part of that, I do run Graham Creek Nature Preserve for the city. We're a 650-acre nature park that has everything from conservation efforts to passive recreation and educational opportunities, and we host a lot of events now as well. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to discussing some of these great things from the past that got us to where we are today.
Don mentioned before the show, he was telling both of us, me and Jacob, a little bit about you. And he mentioned you were his partner in crime. We'll get into that. But I want to first address the zombie in the room behind you there. Big Halloween fan?
So yes, Asher behind me is my cohort for Halloween. We host a pretty big haunted trail out here at Graham Creek. It's one of our biggest fundraisers that supports all of our educational programs. So my office has become kind of the doom and gloom of the city, which I love it. It makes me happy to scare people. It's a little uniqueness to an environmentalist.
I was going to say it's like the intimidation factor. I'm a big Parks and Rec fan, and Ron Swanson always had that mine on his desk. He had a Claymore mine, and he alluded in one of the episodes. He goes, "That's the intimidation. Anybody comes in to ask me a question, they've got to stare a mine down."
Fire in the hole! Woo!
My stress heart when I get in meetings. You just never know what kind of props I'm going to pull out to make people uncomfortable. But I have been compared to Leslie Knope. So it's not quite the same level, but we have a lot of fun around here.
Very nice. But yeah, Don did mention that you were his partner in crime. He used that term both while we were down in Foley with David and Shelly and Christy and Angie and all those folks. He mentioned it again today. I want you to talk to me a little bit, both of us, a little bit about the start of that partnership with Don. How did that come about, and how did that friendship, that partnership sort of blossom in the early days?
So when Don came on board, sports tourism was still, a fairly new term for our city. And I had been working for the city for quite a while already, doing environmental programs, and the park was still pretty new. Didn't really have a lot of stuff going on out here. One of the first things he had mentioned was archery and kind of the whole logistics of that. And I kind of laughed at him. I was like, there's no way that would work. I don't have the staff. I don't have the stuff. And he kind of kept picking at me with it until we finally, kind of warmed up to that whole concept. But I think that the biggest partner in crime story is our Tough Mudder level, where we were super excited to try to have a big mud run out here. We had already had a few small ones, and we were going after the biggest of the big for the time. And we had to fight quite a few battles with the neighborhoods and really team up to have a strategy to move forward with our sports tourism and using the park as part of that arm.
I look back, first of all, she was partner in crime, probably isn't the right term. It was, she was a partner, okay? Yeah. A very good partner, a collaborator. Without her, I don't think our early success that we had with the sports complex would have actually been as significant, because we started doing events, and she was my go-to person. She knew the ins and the outs. David Thompson was as well. They had a great team at Foley. But I mean, just something as simple as, hey, you booked this lacrosse event, but the fields aren't going to be ready. What are we going to do? Well, I could tap into the brain trust of Foley. Hey, Don, what about going across the street into a sod farm, and you could do a temporary situation? Well, we did it. When we had Tough Mudder that I couldn't land in Tuscaloosa, I went to Lesley, and she's like, hell yeah, let's do it. And we got them to come down and do the visit, and we had that sucker locked down. But unfortunately, I believe, as the story goes, it was erroneously reported by the local newspaper that we were bringing in 100,000 people into that area when it was really only 10,000 people. They just added a zero. Well, if I lived on a 2-lane road, I might be a little excited too. So as it turned out, Tough Mudder found a great place to go down the road past Pensacola. I think they did it in Milton. And then we ended up having this massive, incredible archery event that I'm going to let Lesley talk about. Mike Terrell and company came in, and Lesley and her team were amazing. If do me a favor, talk a little bit about Mike, how we got it, how big it is, and now where it is today.
So when archery came in, my thoughts of archery were, a bunch of guys around a couple targets, small scale. I had no concept of the Archery Shooters Association and in their kind of work plan to put on tournaments. They'd been doing it a long time. They had a lot of requirements and a lot of things that they needed to put this on. In the very beginning, I looked at Mike Tyrell and I was like, you are way too high maintenance for my speed. Which I think that kind of built our relationship from the get-go, because I wasn't taking any crap off of any of these sports people. They're going to mess up my nature part. So there was a come to Jesus understanding on that. So over that first year of visiting other tournaments and looking at the layout of our lands and how we could build this, it blossomed. And he told us that we would have maybe 1,000 archers descend upon us. So here Don and I are getting tents and portables and all these things that we didn't have at that time to put on this tournament. And tournament day came for the start. It's like a 4-day tournament. So, it's spanning. And the day that everybody's coming in to register, we have a torrential thunderstorm, and Don Staley's out there holding on to the edge of a tent post, trying to keep a 40 by 60 tent from taking flight in our field. It was utter chaos. Me in my 40s, I'm 6-7 months pregnant.
Oh, that's right.
Flipping out and carrying barricades across the parking lots, trying to move stuff around because it wasn't 1,000 people coming in. It ended up being 1,900 competitors. That's not counting all their families, all the vendors. There was almost 100 vendors at the time that we had to set up in the tents and these RVs and the power needs. It was a nightmare. I literally passed out on the second day on a picnic table from pure exhaustion. And I look back now and I laugh. I'm like, how Don and I got that to the level it was. And people loved it. They were sloshing through calf deep mud and water to shoot the targets. Didn't matter. They were in Foley. They could go to the beach. They had shopping. They had restaurants. It was a place that they didn't have in their circuit to welcome visitors like we could. So it was a very unique thing. And that 1,900 was a huge number for even them. Fast forward to now, we just hosted our 9th archery tournament. We still are very much active in that archery world. We had last year, we had 2,200 shooters come in. We represented all 50 states and 6 other countries. It is an astounding event, and the economic impact is upwards of $3 million to the region. So it has maintained a level of success that nothing else can touch in Foley. And to be in a shoulder season like February, it's great.
What Lesley just described is sports tourism.
Absolutely.
I mean, talk about first of all, recruiting, soliciting. Backstory on this real quick. The folks in Tuscaloosa thought that I stole this event from them because I had finally got the event to come to Tuscaloosa. Well, the event took place the last day I lived up here, and I'm going down to Foley. in fact, we didn't take it from Tuscaloosa. We took it from my mentor in Gainesville, because Gainesville, they were cutting down the trees. So we ended up doing that. So solicitation,
Yeah.
site visit, Lesley, without Lesley, the site visit, we wouldn't have got the event. Then you're talking about the actual mobilization of people to actually get the lanes ready to go, cutting the lanes. And like you just mentioned, the day of events, I can't remember the fellow's name right offhand, but he is in the newspaper business, and he was doing the tent business down there, and we ended up getting him to bring the tents. Well, you're right. It was like 4:35 in the morning, and Knucklehead here is thinking, his at the time 200 and change pound body is going to keep that thing down. And I'm yelling to get my staff to hold on to the tent. We ended up salvaging the tent. It worked. Then Lesley's talking about the numbers growing, the economic impact, the hotels, the retail, the restaurants. Hell, Orange Beach and Gulf Shores mayors should have been sending gift baskets up to Lesley and the city of Foley, because that was during a dead time, shoulder season, and they're all filling up Foley hotels, but they're going down to the beach. And those that didn't stay at the beach, they were making trips down to the beach. That, in a nutshell, is sports tourism.
Yeah.
And then what she did, and her team did, and David's group as well, they continued to refine and get better, which led to more events. I mean, isn't there an indoor component to this too?
It is. That say we had our event center constructed, and we're able to shoot the shoot down in. So they come in, and the best of the best pros come in and do that, and it's televised. So a lot of publicity, a lot of great camaraderie, where they all gather together to see these shoot downs. And I will say something else that spurred from this. So we have become, well, in Foley, archery's handled this way. So we're the model for the rest of the nation. So we have site visits from every other circuit wannabe to see how it's done. And we've created almost like a package to turn over to these people so that they can run tournaments. They're never going to be as good as we are, but at least get close, so that the competitors are taken care of. Because the archers, they love to come to Foley. We have the wagons, and like Don and I talked about earlier, we get the tractor club involved. And so we've purchased some very large wagons, and the tractor clubs bring in the tractors, and they haul them to these ranges that are remote. Because we cover about 250 pure acres for just competition. That's not counting the vendor village and the parking lots. So having that expansive property available and mobilizing these guys back and forth, unheard of. And to build upon that, we at least, I guess we're in year 5 maybe of now hosting the Collegiate National Championship of 3D Archers. So we have USA Archery come in, who kind of runs that, and they work with that ASA Association and the Mike Tyrell Group, which is now owned by Josh Grine of Cam Media. And they come in, and it's a shorter circuit. It's about 3 days, and we have about 500 or so college level archers, and they come in every October and have their championship.
And Lesley,
it's a great partnership. I wouldn't trade archery for anything.
No, what I was going to ask you about is, I was blown away the first time that my mentor down, Jack Hughes from Gainesville, told me about the archery thing, and I need to come down to Gainesville. And I did. I kicked the tires. But what I was shocked about is, some of these 18-wheelers, they had the superstars on the track. There's some actual rock stars, if you will, in the sports. And I can't remember the fellow's name. Young guy, was probably about 6'5", 6'6".
Levi Morgan.
There you go. Is he still shooting?
Levi Morgan. So he is still shooting. I'm not an archer. I didn't know anything. I knew you tried to hit the bullseye. Other than that, I have no idea. I do now. but Levi would have a following of his fans. And so they would be running up to him for autographs. They still do. There's other rock star archers. There's children that are amazing, up and coming archers that everybody's excited about. It's such a feel good group. I mean, I don't know, it's like a family now. So we check on each other between the archers, the vendors, the organizers. Foley's their second home, and they say that all the time.
Well, I know from when we were down there, when we shot the show on location, and when Jacob was shooting all the great footage that you're seeing across your screen, there was a gentleman out there practicing archery out there, and he wanted to commission Jacob to stay out there all day because he just kept hitting bullseye after bullseye while Jacob was out there shooting them. So, it's. I want to talk a little bit about the facility aside from the sports tourism component. I mean, it's a beautiful park. We had the chance to visit. We walked into the visitor center, met Tua, the big old rabbit up there at the front of the visitor center, and there's an alligator in there, a couple of snakes, a big beautiful aquarium filled with bluegill and crappie, and it's a great facility. What kind of value does that add to the city of Foley to have that type of space where it is open, to the public? It is a great place to go out and get some experiential learning for the community. It's for me, I told my wife, when we go down to the beach this summer, I said, I want to stop in Foley and go to Graham Creek so our kids can go see the rabbit and the animals and learn a little bit about the natural ecosystem down there in South Alabama.
So when I developed Graham Creek, it was really just property that was sitting behind a fence. And Don Staley came in kind of at the right time because I was still just figuring out what to do. We had 500 acres that sat behind a fence. And so when we opened it as a park, it kind of opened up a lot of territory. And I grew up here, so I wanted our people and our visitors to see all these unique things that are kind of going away because of development. So we started managing the acreage, which is a lot of fire. We burn the park at least once to twice a year to keep these cool plants and animals with the right types of habitats. So we're kind of a known destination for pitcher plants. Right now, our parking lots are full because people are traveling from everywhere to see these endangered carnivorous plant blooms. I think we're right at 300-400 acres of just endangered plants. Like I said, the carnivorous plants, the pitcher plants, the orchids. It's a really beautiful place. So we manage for that first and foremost, that conservation effort. What we do on the side is kind of bring that learning, that passive recreation opportunity. So the archery park, we're one of the only archery parks in South Alabama that is open to the public. It's kind of managed hand in hand with Fish and Wildlife, but it provides an opportunity for archers to learn, the basics of that, as well as bow hunters to have a place to practice. We have 4 disc golf courses. 4 in one location. That's unheard of. So we host tons of leagues and tournaments, all free. We're a city park. Canoe launch. We have kayaks for rent out here now. We want people to get out and experience what we have. We have over 10 miles of trails that are marked, dotting through all the different ecosystems. A lot of cross-country runners come out here as well for that. With all of that, we've opened up educational programs. So we have, on average, we educate about 5,000 people annually through our programming, whether it be tours, workshops, field trips, summer camps. We kind of do a little bit of everything. And what I love is that our staff is only, I think we're up to 13 full-timers on the entire grounds, and maybe 2 or 3 part-timers. So managing 650 acres now for all the things we do with all the programs, and the interpretive center where we host weddings, we host holiday events. It's such a huge, intricate system that we have that's such an asset to the community and to the visitors alike.
It was special. It was definitely a special place. And, you mentioned you only have 13, staff members there. They are doing an incredible job. When we walked into the visitor center there at the very front, I believe there was 2 young ladies working there, and they were very friendly. They were, answering all of our questions. So they're doing a great job. You guys got a great crew down there, and it really is an absolutely beautiful place, and a place that I definitely would like to come back to.
Hey, Lesley, I just thought of something. Talk about archery and how hard that was. What was the name of the biking event that we did? It was oh my gosh. That was a tough one. That was a tough event. Now, I was the guy on the back of the truck putting the cones on the Beach Express. And I'll tell you what, that was no slouch. That was an early event too. One of the early events that we did when we were yeah. And I mean, you should have seen how she had that park decorated. And what we were talking about a minute ago, yes, sports tourism and the economics, and then Zach just transitioned into, the local. I remember you talking about the Halloween. What's the name of the event?
They are Graham Creek Haunted Forest is what we host every October. On top of collegiate archery, on top of we also host the Sunbelt Collegiate Cross Country Championship in October. So it is our busiest season, but that event draws people from as far as New Orleans, North Alabama, over to the Big Bend of Florida. People drive to come to our Halloween event. We've also added a Christmas trail. And Dawn, I don't know if you've been aware of that. This last year, we welcomed, I think it ended up being 3,000 guests over 3 weekends to walk through our Christmas trail at night, where we have snow and lighted Christmas scenes, and we have characters. That is only we just finished our 3rd year. Every year we've doubled in attendance, and I mean, we only charge a nominal fee, just enough to cover some of our supply costs. And again, it is such a family-friendly event, and it gets people into the park. They see what's in our nature center. They see Tua. They get to see the snakes and the alligator. They learn about the park. So these events are more than just a small revenue generator. They're drawing people in to see what great work the city has done. And it just should put a tear in my eye to make somebody cry in fear and then turn around and be so joyous when they get to meet Santa. So great stuff we have out here.
Foley to me is a shining star of this state. It's positioned perfectly with the beaches. You've got Tanger right next door to you. You basically, and that I'm getting ready to move back to the area. We're going to be over in Lillian, and, within 1.5 miles, I'm across the Perdido Bay. I can go Pensacola. And I love Palafox Street, but I'm going to tell you, so much of what I see us doing, Kim and I, will be over there in Foley. And again, I think that what you provide is a double edge, if you will. You've got the tourism component that you've mastered, but what you provide for the locals in the area is amazing. And that's another example. I didn't know about the Christmas part. I knew Halloween because I think you had me dressed up one time. Didn't you also have an Easter event? Because didn't you have me in a bunny suit?
We do. That's right. Yes, you were one of our first bunnies out here. We still have Easter egg hunts. It's coming up right before Easter, and we bring in about 300 of the local kids. With this year, we're hiding 3,500 eggs. We also have a bunny scavenger hunt where we put clues so the parents and the kids and even adults, a lot of the seniors like to do it. They get clues and they have to go around the park to find the hidden bunnies.
I'm having an old school moment.
Not shooting bunnies, just finding them.
I'm having the movie Old School. I think that's what it was, where the guy had him dressed up in the costume and he was sweating like a. That was me in the bunny suit.
Spanish. What the hell are you doing?
Man, I'm just getting some water, yo. This suit is crazy hot.
Put your head back on.
And but I'll tell you what I do remember is, again, all those smiling faces of those kids for the event that you put on. And that's what you've done since you've been here. And, of course, I'm blessed to have met you. Hell, you turned me on to Avenged Sevenfold. I don't know if you remembered that. You took me in your Dodge Charger, and I think we broke a land speed record at one point. I learned so much about hanging out with this girl here. Yeah. Between her and Eddie Boy Warner, I know there's two different extremes, but Eddie was my partner in crime, because I will never forget. I tell this story to about anybody who'll listen, that when I got to Foley and I went to a cleaner down there, the guy finally said to me, "Who are you and what's your story?" And I said, well, I'm with the city of Foley, and we're building this complex over here. It was blue collar country at the time. And the guy looked at me and said, "Oh, that's not going to happen." And of course, that led to us having to up our game as far as marketing to let the locals know it was going to happen. Yeah. And you remember we did the lawnmower racing? Eddie Boy Warner, he came in and helped skin the track. Shelley was telling me that I reached out to her to find out where to get bales of hay to put around the track, and then we found out that the mowers could go as fast as like 60 miles an hour. But what we did is we drew a crowd out there, and it was an opportunity to say, "Hey, locals, this thing's going to happen." I mean, I was down there for 3.5 years, and I met some of the best people. And the thing that I always will remember is it was all for one, one for all, with the city of Foley, starting at the top with the mayor, Mayor Conyer, with Mike Thompson, Jeff Rousey, the city council, you, David Thompson. I mean, Public Works. I mean, when you think of Daryl and company and 50 Watt, everybody was so bought in that this was going to work. And you know what? It did. It did. And I'm a better person for it. And I know this much, that, of course, I came back home to Tuscaloosa. Now Northport is going to build this sports complex finally. I still wonder why, when you're having benchmarking trips, when you're talking about sports complexes, why you wouldn't take the team here in Tuscaloosa, just 4 hours down the road, to find the shining star and everything they were doing down there. To me, I'll never understand why they didn't do that. But let me say this for the record. City of Foley, everybody down there, part of these projects, have been amazing. And now David Thompson and company took the baton, and you guys are blowing and going at a whole different level. So I'll get off my soapbox. I usually do that at least once on this show.
Oh, yeah.
But I loved you guys down there, and I'm looking forward to seeing a whole bunch more. I can't wait to take my wife. We're going to walk around that park.
Well, and the other thing that we've really pushed for is more access, because some of the park's so remote. We have limo golf carts now. Dawn, you'll be happy to know that we provide tours. So quite a few times every month, I try to at least once get out there on those limo golf carts and take people out to show them all the unique stuff we have offline. We even recently got a grant for a wheelchair accessible golf cart. So we can take somebody in a wheelchair out along with their friends and family. So getting people into the bogs, getting them to see our beehives. Eventually we're going to have cattle out here. We're trying to do some different innovative projects, but that's what we're here for. We're here to provide access to everybody and show them what a great place we have, and not for any monetary compensation, just so people appreciate it as much as we do.
Well, I'm still hung up on the fact that Dawn had to dress up like a bunny. So I'm gonna ask if either you, Kim, or you, Lesley, can try to find a picture of Dawn in this bunny suit.
Immediately, my feet began to sweat as those two fluffy little bunnies with the blue button eyes stared sappily up at me.
Let me do some homework. I bet I have some old pictures of that.
I was gonna say either
he was a zombie one too. Been my zombie. He was a zombie, and we had a corpse crawl, which was a mud run. of zombies chasing people.
Oh, wow.
And he was one of my zombies.
Wow.
Yeah, that was fun.
And he's scary enough looking not dressed up. So you probably didn't have to do too much makeup with the with the zombie attire. But that's awesome. It really is a great place. I was very impressed by it when I was down there. And Don alluded a couple times, and I'll give you the chance to kind of add on. Since David Thompson has taken over, and we had a great chat with David and his team. Really blown away by the cohesiveness of his team down there in Foley. How has that partnership continued? Working with David and his team, going to conventions, bringing events. Tell me a little bit more about that partnership that's ongoing.
So really, the city has become Team Foley, and Don was instrumental in developing Team Foley as our motto. And so we work as a cohesive unit throughout, especially sports tourism and public works, and myself. We're always communicating. There's not a day goes by that we're not on the phone with each other discussing whether it's events or just strategies for the city to do better. We're all one. We're all after the same goals. Our city kind of laid the goals out when our new mayor took place, and we fit perfectly in line with that. And I think it helps that, David Thompson and I grew, and Daryl Russell, our public works director, we all grew up together. So we all went to Foley High School together. So the fact that we are such a team from way back when, I think that helps in that whole strategy of keeping that team Foley together and sharing resources. Prior to our tenure as directors, that really wasn't a thing. If they bought something as a certain department's tool or equipment, it didn't go to another department. That's all gone now. Public Works is one of the best to share their large equipment, their staff. That if there's some projects to be done, we work together to make sure it's done correctly and done on time. So I think that's why our city has worked so well, is because we are a team.
Truly all in.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, obviously, there's a lot to see when you're a tourist down there in Foley, a lot to go and do. But there's a lot to learn from the city, and our audience. I know that we've got a lot of people that run DMOs or work with DMOs or within a city, and that's something Don and I always strive to do with these shows, is to make them informative. Yes. And make them to where there's something that can be learned out there, and I think there's a lot to learn from the city of Foley, from Team Foley, Foley Sports Tourism, everything that goes on down there. So Lesley, I really want to thank you for your time. Glad you got to join us virtually. We hate we missed you down there in person, but outstanding job down there at Graham Creek. I truly mean that. I plan on bringing my kids down there and exploring it a little bit. I'll have to pop in and see if you're there and say hello, meet you in person. But it's been great. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to go back down memory lane and go back to the roots that started all of this, because it did take a partnership to get to where we are today.
Can't wait to see you, girl. Be down there at the end of April.
All right. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lesley.
Thank y'all.
And continuing our conversations with some more folks that made Foley so great in the beginning and continue to do so on our Foley Mega Show Part 2. We're joined now by John Guidroz and Nick Cooper, two gentlemen with Snap Soccer. And I'll go ahead and let you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what your brand's all about.
Yeah, no, I've been involved. Actually, it's almost my 10-year anniversary with Snap. Got to know John. I think at the time he was a director at Pedido, still is. I was a director at Fairhope Soccer Club. We were running play dates. We can kind of go down a little bit of a rabbit hole. That play dates were kind of set up around 10 to 12 years ago, where we'd phase in without them having to, kind of coordinate between the two clubs themselves. So I think the play dates originally grew from 50 to, I think we're at like almost 80 to 100 teams right now. And like I said, I've been with the organization. It'll be 10 years in May, 10 years in May, and I've loved every minute of it. And I've loved seeing the growth and the people that we get to work together with, not just in-house, but out of house. And I've been in America since 2008. Funny story for you. I got a notification in the mail yesterday that I'm now liable for jury duty. So looking forward to completing that box of voting, jury duty, and I became a citizen a long time ago. But no, I've lived in Fairhope since 2008. Enjoyed every minute of seeing, like I said, the growth of Snap Soccer, and yeah, kind of looking forward to see where we can go from here. At this point, I got to know Don probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
10 years ago, trying to get him to come out to run sessions with my older girls team. He refused, but did tell me he's happy to help from the outside looking in. But no, it's been a good relationship on every front with Snap and the team we have, and stayed in touch with Don to this point, and it's been enjoyable. So looking forward to seeing what the next few years can be.
Yeah, 10 years, man. It flies by. So my name's John Guidroz. I started Snap Soccer in 2010. Prior to that, I had helped out a couple of my local clubs just get organized and have their own tournaments. Tournaments primarily are used as a marketing asset for the club and a fundraiser. So where it got interesting is I work a full-time job in healthcare and have maintained that career for 20 plus years. After I've worked a very long week, very demanding job, I'm just coming out there to watch my kid play. That's all I want to do. I just want to watch my kid play. And I started going to events where, 20 years ago, the professionalism just wasn't there. I would show up for a 9 o'clock game and the fields are not lined. The grass has not been cut. The goals are not, like, the nets have holes in them. There's not a referee. Like, instead of having 3 refs, you get like a referee and a half if you have like a field marshal or somebody helping out. And I got so upset that we ended up taking this thing to more of an incorporation level. We formed the LLC. At first, SNAP, the acronym stands for Soccer Needs for All Programs. And basically we had an e-commerce store. We did some other, online education, stuff like that. But then where we really found our niche was in tournament operations. We have a team, full-time team of 8 people, plus about 20 contractors that work with us throughout the year. And we've gone from doing, 5-6 events a year to we'll probably do 50, 55 events. Some of them we own, some of them we manage. We've gotten into some remote management, which basically means we're helping clubs that they're really good at the operations, but they need a lot of help when it comes to the marketing, the scheduling, the logistics of getting the tournament prep. So basically, out of my frustration, Snap Soccer evolved into what is now a premier event company. And our thing is we respect the parents' time and the players' time, that when they show up for the event, we're super sticky about starting on time. We invest a lot of money into the referee education, keeping those refs coming back. And here we are now in 2025. Soccer's growing to a point that is, it's all going to be about utilization in the next couple of years. There's more teams that want to come than we have field space for. So we're dealing with a big issue of appropriately bracketing and utilizing the fields and the goals and the things that we have access to ensure that these weekends are we don't want to turn kids away. I mean, we're not running or managing national championship games. Kids come to our tournaments because they want to have fun. The coaches want to compete. They want a good environment. And through all of that, I got to meet some really cool people. I do go to the conferences, get to shake hands with other event operators, and I get to meet guys like Don. And Don and I got to meet through a relationship in Baldwin County, Alabama, where Don came down coming out of Tuscaloosa and heard we were going to do this whole Foley project. And that's kind of where our relationship kicked off. And we've got some family ties that have, like, we've known each other through family through years prior to that. But at the same time, like, it's the Foley project we had was really special, and it continues to get national awards every single year, both in its production of sports tourism, but also in just the attraction that it does as far as a venue in the Southeast. I mean, it's first class.
Yeah, Don mentioned, that you guys kind of were brought on early as almost consultants when it came to building a soccer complex. And I decided to liken you guys to almost client zero for Foley. You know, he kind of started down there with your guys' organization, and you guys continue to do business with the city of Foley and David Thompson and his team. Walk me through a little bit of those early years. What was those initial conversations like with Don when you found out he was down there tasked with building the complex, and your role in helping that come to fruition?
So that was those were fun times. Back then we were running events that were 200 teams, but we were over 5 different complexes, and the venues were about, in some cases, an hour to an hour and a half apart from each other. But we got it done. So, like Nick said, we were both Nick and I both live in the club soccer world, so we both manage soccer clubs, and we got approached from I remember David Thompson. I'll never forget the first time he called me. He said, "Hey, we're going to build a sports complex with 12 fields in Foley. Will you come look at some of these diagrams to see, what we need to do?" And so, at the time, David was working just for the city. He was not on the sports tourism team. He was just he's a city Parks and Rec. And we went through, and I said, "Well, listen, if you do this, you need to have parking over here. And if you do it this way, you got to do that." And I said, "But at the end of the day, 12 field is not enough." I say, if you really want to make this thing, you got to get up to like 20 to 24. The ultimate number was 16 that they ended up building. So it was, I think that first conversation was 4 years before they broke ground on the project. So we got to hear, and then at the time that was still blue collar. It was still a blue collar project.
Yes, it was.
So it kind of evolved. And then in the early years, obviously got to meet Don, and they told me they were going to bring in Don, and he was going to be the guy to spearhead the project and get it off the ground. And it was, Don sold Foley like I've never seen Foley sold before. I mean, there were tractor races out there. There was, you talk anything that would attract people to come hang out, Don got them there. And I remember looking at his Rolodex of people he had coming in, and it was, super creative. And you kind of had to, I hate to say it, but poor Don had to fake it till he made it, because we were promised fields, earlier than what was there. At one event, we ended up painting soccer fields on a sod farm. Luckily, Foley's got tons of great sod farms, and Don's not a guy to shy away from hard work. So he's like, "All right, get the paint cans, get the trailers, we're moving the goals." And that's some of the early ones. And then I'll never forget our first actual soccer tournament. There was only 4 fields completed. There was mud everywhere, construction. It was over Memorial Day weekend. And Don's like, "I just need you to pull something off. I've got to get a soccer tournament here. We got to do it." And we did. We leaned in, and we had 4 active fields. We had wooden planks for sidewalks to get out there. We made sure we kept it nice and small. I think it ended up being like 30 or 35 teams, but we pulled it off. And I told Don, I was like, I know this is going to pay itself off, but I gave him a laundry list. I was like, here's everything we got to have, because we're still running tournaments all over other parts of the country. And Don went back to the city, and Don's like, here's a laundry list. And by golly, by the next fall, we had fields, we had sidewalks, we had all the lights were in place. It was incredible. But those early years, we do pretty much run all the youth events there now. It was not always like that. Out of respect to the city, they hired multiple operators for multiple different events. And, we've just been able to be very successful in that geography, and to the point now where Foley calls us pretty much to run all their youth soccer events. There's still high school tournaments and like 3v3 and small sided, but if it's a youth soccer tournament, it all goes through Snap Soccer now.
That's great. It sounds to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're kind of seeing that initial legwork that Don and David and the city of Foley, did in bringing you guys in 4 years ahead of the groundbreaking. Does that kind of give you the vote of confidence? Like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and hitch my wagon to this guy and see what he can do, and see the project come forward?
Well, it's like, you trust people to do what they say they're going to do. And nowadays in business, it's rare to have somebody do exactly what they say they're going to do. And so, we're always about, working with new markets and we want to expand and all that. But we've had several markets where we were overpromised and underdelivered. And with Don, we got through it. And in the first couple of events, I mean, one funny parking story, we get out there and we had no idea how we were going to do parking. I mean, the parking, it was a logistical nightmare for a lot of different reasons, but we figured out a way. And Don's out there about put himself in the hospital working. I don't know how many hours he was out there, but I mean, we got 2,000 cars coming in, and Don's like, "You go over here, you go over here, you park there. What are you doing? Get out of here!" And so it was this ongoing saga of how do we make these things work? How are we going to pull all this off? Because it's, Foley's got a lot of great things to it. It's just there's never enough room at a soccer complex for a big tournament. You're just going to run out of space. So the vote of confidence was there, but we also, we were pretty impressed at the reciprocal efforts that we got from, Angie and, Rhett, and just basically the whole team. And a lot of it, Don just kind of set the standard of, this is going to happen. So we always knew if Don said, "Hey, we're going to do it," we're all like, we didn't ask questions. We knew we were going to put our head down and get it done. So those early years and those first couple of tournaments helped kind of set the stage for what we have now.
Well, a couple comments. John is so right when he talked about 12 fields versus 16. By the way, thank you for the kind compliments, and let me give one back to both of you. Without, of course, without Bob Baumhauer and the introduction and whatnot, and Charlie Ebert, I don't know where I would be today. Of course, we wouldn't have had the success that we had down there without John Guidroz. And of course, Nick, fast friends with this guy as well. But, and I was blessed because of all of them. I was blessed because of, you just mentioned somebody. I had one of the best groundskeepers, I think, in the country in Rhett. Rhett was a superstar, as was the team. The people he had working for him, the Christy Thompsons of the world, the Angie Sullivans, all them. But then it was the all-in of Team Foley. And, I'm very proud of what I created, but, I'm a different cat versus a David Thompson, more of a sweat equity guy versus more of a cerebral guy. David is one of the most intelligent guys I've ever met. And I think that he was the right guy to take the baton and take it to another level. And also we talked with our guys from Salem, Virginia. They've been doing parks and recreation tourism like a champ for years. And that's what David had been doing down there. And so anyway, long and short, John brought up 16 fields, and I had to laugh because, John had told them first that they needed 16. Well, then when I was able to negotiate the NERSA National Championships, it was 96 college teams from around the country, but they said, you gotta have 16. 12's not gonna cut it. That's the new norm. Would we have liked to have more? Would it have been nice to have a couple turf fields? Sure. And by the way, a little side note, I remember the early days, we had the pathways to get through to the fields. They weren't paved in the very beginning, were they? We had muck going through there, and then we had soccer balls that were going on. Soccer ball's kind of hard when somebody nails it going 40, 50 miles an hour. Oh, yeah. But then when we decided we were going to go after lacrosse, we said, guys, soccer balls are going to hurt, but they are a little soft. Versus a lacrosse ball going 90 miles an hour, we have to have those nets. What I'm talking about is it was so all in with guys like John and Nick and the folks from lacrosse that we grew from the beginning. We had our beginnings that were good, and then it became great. And now look at them, what John just said. They're getting awards yearly for what they've done down there. So we ended up going to city council, and this city council and mayor and city manager, they were all in. They were going to win. And they said, yes, we'll do the extra 4 fields if that's what it takes to get these tournaments. And I'm going to tell you what John said about customer service and what they did as an organization, those tournaments just hummed along, and I can remember a couple of times where they'd come out and they'd see what was going on the parking, and it was like, like the Germans about Pearl Harbor, that movie, let him go, let him go. And then we would sit down and we would collaborate afterwards. And so many of those meetings, it was like a laundry list of things that we needed to do differently. I learned so much from those guys. I mean, let's be honest. I was a doggone soccer coach and I was a recruiter. And so getting into the sports tourism, I was learning on the fly, but I guess the blue collar nature in me, I had planned to get it done. I was going to roll up my sleeves. But without these guys, I mean, oh my God, they've taught me so much, and they brought so much economic impact to not only Foley, but Orange Beach and Gulf Shores and Pensacola, that whole area. And then, Nick, some of the work that you were doing and probably continue to do up there in the Fairhope Daphne area. Talk a little bit, if you will, about the economics. Maybe talk about with how David's taken the baton and taken it to another level. Talk a little bit about that and, Fairhope and Daphne, what they've got going on.
Yeah, it's funny because my original point I just wrote down there now, to your point of where you started and where you ended up with 16, 17 fields, John and I and Zach and the crew, we're now at the point where that's nowhere near enough. Every event now, I think we're on overflow of, and, for an event standpoint company, we don't want to tell teams no. We want more. And, we want to take every team we possibly can. I think in reflection, I think Fairhope's different because Fairhope is a smaller town. It wants to kind of stay its smaller town environment. They have 2 to 3 hotels. Foley is putting up new hotels every week. It's funny because we were in Huntsville. I was in Huntsville last weekend, and that event, back to John's original point of just trying to get an event off the ground. I think the first year we had 24 teams, Don. I think now, last 2 weekends ago, we did our record number of 109 teams. And that's without, local support. We tied in with the smallest club of the 3 in Huntsville, and they've been great as a partner for us. But if we were to tie in the 2 larger clubs, I mean, that event would be 150 teams. And probably at that point, you tag their 2 logos into it, you'd probably go to 200 teams in no time. So I think they can understand, they can understand a little bit more larger scale of what they want to achieve. And it's been a great relationship for us. I do think every city probably is completely different in what they want to achieve with certain situations. I do think that, funny story, Don, while I'm thinking about it is, it took me 2 years of knowing you to even have to Google myself to figure out your background with Alabama soccer in general. You never spoke about it. So massive kudos to yourself. You put your other hat on, you dive straight into the sports tourism world. And I don't know if this is the time or the place to tell the referee story of when he parked in front of the field house. I don't know how many people see this podcast. I don't want to call that one guy out, but yeah, walking out front, and I think it must have been 6:30 in the morning. Referees were showing up. This poor referee, nicest guy in the world, parks there, and before you know it, Don switches from mid-conversation with he and I just about the success of the Saturday previously. This is Sunday morning. It was like the Hulk came out in Don. The Hulk came out pretty quickly. He's like, "You do not belong." So it was hilarious. But, no, all that to be said, I do think that everything we're doing, and it's different right now because we started locally, and now we have remote events in Hawaii. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Wow. So it's kind of every event has its different niche. One thing we do well is keep those relationships with every terrific staff behind us. And I think back to your point, the relationships we keep and maintain, I think are massively important.
We call that Coach Staley coming out, not the Hulk, but I like that comparison as well. We had a couple guests liking Don's his soft shell. He's very professional and very nice, easygoing, and then like that, the old coach of him comes out and he can snap and bite some heads off. So. Speaking of snap, actually, you guys share a name. Is this guy paying you royalties for the name Snap?
He should be at this point, yeah.
I'm sitting here writing this. I'm sitting writing this down because I'm on the plane and trying to come up with the name of my company. And I just saw a buddy of mine and he said, "Hey, how you doing, Snap?" Because I did have a little temper when we played noontime basketball and they would call me Snap. So Southeastern Network of Athletic Professionals was the name. And that's awful long. And so I'm looking at it. We had done an event with Visit Tuscaloosa. It was called Date Night. It was diamonds and arrangements and anyways. So I worked my magic and it came up with Snap. I was like, oh, and I went, oh shit, I need to reach out to John. And so I did end up reaching out to John's like, John, I probably should be paying him royalty fees for that. But John was cool about it. And I said, yeah, it's a long name. It's Southeastern Network of Athletic Professionals. And I'm calling it Snap Sports Tourism. And that's how I came up with the name.
I think the fact that you paid for lunch that afternoon when you told him, it probably helped.
Yeah, it was yeah, I mean, hey, it's one of those things like you get to know people, and I've known Don for a long time, and it didn't bug us one bit. I was like, hey, it's all good, and I said, if you get a situation, Don speaks very highly of us, and we appreciate that. So it's like it hasn't been anything that has been deterring. I did meet somebody at a conference, and they were like, oh, Snap, I'm meeting with y'all next week, and I was like, really? And I was like, what's his name? He's like, it's Don, right? And I was like, yeah, we know Don. But it doesn't happen very often.
Well, and when you go to Google, I think they populate first.
Yeah, they've got the better SEO.
Yeah, for sure. Talk a little bit. You just mentioned Hawaii, and by the way, I'm going to be down there just across the way in Lillian. I raised my hand. I might not be into the soccer coaching clinics anymore, might not be the coach anymore, but I'll tell you what, if I'm needed, I'll just be a stone's throw away from not only the Foley complex and of course Bowers Road. What's the complex called over there?
Well, that's the Southwest Sports Complex.
I mean, I've got my hand raised for Hawaii. If you guys, need somebody to jump on a plane and do some of those.
The long line there. There's a long line. You're lost in it. We're all trying to go.
Segue into, do me a favor and tell us and tell the audience a little bit about two things. One is how you determine going to different cities, and talk about your brand. I know we talked about me scarfing up the name Snap. Talk a little bit about your brand. I mean, how it's gone from local to national, and talk about how you decide not only what conventions to go buy business, but what you do there and how you decide on cities.
I mean, so I'll start with like overstretch. So we've been very strategic in how we find our partners. The other piece is we have a very unique value proposition that we like to come in and pitch. We don't typically put out RFPs. The way we go in is we want to meet people who are at the actually behind the scenes. And I'm just going to use Foley. We talked about Foley. The unique thing about Foley is I've got one person to talk to, and they rent the fields. It's the field team. It's if there's questions about like how we're lining the fields or like anything to do with the city and the hotels, they're one centralized organization. Whereas we've gone to other ones where I talk to the CVB, and the CVB is like, oh, this is great. We'd love to have you. You need to call Billy to rent the fields though. So I call Billy, and Billy's like, hey, that shouldn't be a problem, but you've got to go talk to Steve, who's at the local soccer club, who he actually owns all the goals. So then I call Steve, and we got to work that out. And they said, well, Joey's the one that actually lines the fields, so you're going to have to get with him to make sure the fields are lined correctly. And then I found out that, there's no hotel related. So anyway, there's some areas that might have great fields, but their infrastructure, we just stay away from it. There's too many hands involved, and ultimately it's not a good user experience for us, and it's not a good user experience for the people who are attending. So what we do is we love opening new complexes. We mentioned like Provo, like we've got an event up there. So like the Panama City complex. When Auburn got their new fields added, we started working there. Huntsville added, their new turf fields. So like we've naturally just kind of migrated towards areas that are trying to become up and coming. And there's a lot of places that they don't want more sports tourism. Like there's some places that, believe it or not, they're so ingrained into diamond sports, softball, baseball, that soccer doesn't really make sense there. So we don't force the agenda. We look for people who are really highly vested in rectangle sports that want to see, they want our consumer in their yard. We've got some existing tournaments that, I was told by the Parks and Rec guy, if you never ran another tournament here, we would be okay with that. We're so busy and we got so much to do that we don't, this just is more work for us that we don't want to deal with. So that to say, when we have found some place that we want to put our flag, we typically become very successful. We hold ourselves accountable to our promise. They hold themselves accountable to their promise, and it works out really well. The growth in the remote management comes out of the relationships. A lot of these teams, we'll work with 3,000 or 4,000 soccer teams a year. They all have other facilities they go to. And we've gotten a lot of business out of that relationship that, it's like we can go run an event in Texas, for example, or Virginia or Miami, and they can do most of the work on the weekend, but they need our expertise on registration, management. Somebody's got to answer the phone Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Like people are calling. They got a lot of, consumers have a lot of questions. Where do I stay? What cards do I need to use? Can I bring guest players? There's a million questions these people can ask. So that all has allowed myself to keep growing the company, but I've got an incredible team that I don't run the tournaments anymore. I stepped out of that a couple of years ago to do more strategic partnerships and growth. So you got guys like Nick, you got Parker, you got Zach, we have Gail, Jesse. We've got a team that does a really good job, and they're all as passionate at this as I am. So to answer your question, like that's kind of some of the way we grow, and it's kind of like our philosophy. The idea of throwing an event on the wall and maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. We do not look at an event that says maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Like if we put a flag in the ground, by golly, like we're going to make it happen, and we've done enough research to make sure that it goes there. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask, and this maybe going a little bit of a different direction here, but you've talked about how you guys are growing and how you've had DMOs and CVB saying, "Hey, we can't, we don't have enough space to fit you in. We're too busy." Speak a little bit about the growth of soccer in the United States. It's certainly, we mentioned, I think Nick mentioned at the very beginning when you guys first came on, how much has grown in recent years. What have you guys seen as far as trends and the data goes as far as more participation and the numbers of people, particularly in the Southeast where football is still king? How have you guys seen soccer grow as a sport?
I'm going to let Nick take this because, Nick has an interesting perspective. He grew up in London and came over here to start coaching and started with camps and then got into the club world. So, he sees it from a different lens than I do. So I'll speak to some of the data and metrics that we see, but I'll let Nick talk about what he's seen in the last 20 years being here.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask John a question a second ago about, obviously there's certain towns or places that don't necessarily want soccer. I'd be very curious to see how they react on the back end of the World Cup next summer. Answer your question, I'll do the best I can. I do think it's been a consistent growth. I don't think it's been a dramatic growth. I definitely don't think it's declined. I do think that there is more understanding now with your baseball dads that only knew anything about baseball that now have sons or daughters that are now moving into the soccer world. So now at this point, trying to wrap their heads around what soccer is, and it's important, and it's growing, and it's, it is hopefully in the next 4 or 5 years going to be the most popular sport in the country. But to put yourselves in my shoes, I try and relate a lot to when my son played baseball, Don and Zach. Like I have no clue about baseball. I've lived in this country 18 years. I still couldn't tell you the rules, the regulations, the understanding of baseball. And no disrespect to any American, it's as bad as cricket, if not worse. And the drama you get on the sideline with it, I wish cricket kind of had that same drama, because you probably have more people playing it just to go watch their kids play, so they could be around some drama that doesn't involve their own family. But no, I have seen a consistent growth in it. I think it's been stable. I do think in our area specifically, what's just occurred over the last together to provide a platform for these players to continue to progress, whilst also not neglecting your home club players. And your home club players, I mean, for example, you know, your 200 kids, 300 kids that we had at Benito, right? So now offering this next platform, but playing at a higher league level, those kids are not getting neglected. But you're also taking care of the 5 to 10% of those kids that want a higher level or need a higher level, so they don't go somewhere else. So to see all that come together, I think in the last 3 years, Coastal, John, 4 years, 3 years, and continue to see the interest from outside clubs looking in and seeing, you know, what's being offered. And when I say the home clubs, that also includes your recreational kids as well. So your kids from 4 years old, whether they want to stay in a recreational program until they're 15, 16, 17, 18, depending on what that home club can offer in-house. I think that, for me personally, has been enjoyable to see that you're offering a level for every kid. And everyone says you can offer a, you know, level for every kid, but do they really mean it? Are you focusing on the higher level, or are you focusing on the lower level? But I think in what we've done recently in-house has been, long story short, I do think there's been a steady, consistent growth. I think the best way I can paint the picture is me being a baseball dad or a basketball dad or even a softball dad. Thankfully, I don't have female daughters. I work with females on the coaching standpoint. But I do think that, no, I've seen a consistent growth, and it's been educational for me to see how other people are now reacting to soccer from a parent perspective versus how they probably would have reacted to it back in 2007 when I moved here. It was kind of like, oh, soccer in South Alabama? Absolutely not. And I do think the growth of obviously the complex, what's happening in Foley, people can kind of now wrap their heads around, okay, well, why are baseball facilities not growing like they do have, you know, 17 fields in Foley? Why are softball fields not getting additional fields like they are in Foley? Why are, you know, Huntsville getting 8 brand new turf fields when they're not doing that with softball and baseball and other fields? So I don't know if that made sense. When I my 2 cents.
It does.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
You know, we see that the events are like, you know, just on the event side, like we see events filling up a lot sooner. People are becoming just more educated, where they know if they have a team, like you're either a club team or a rec team, and they're starting to get a better differentiator. The bigger leagues are growing, so your ECNLs, your MLS, your GAs, those platforms are growing, which, you know, you're seeing a little bit more organization across the country, where it used to be more like pocket based. Utilization, something we talked about soon, or a little bit earlier, like with the World Cup coming in, you got the Club World Cup this summer, then the actual World Cup coming in after. The idea that these kids are going to start having more people to look at on TV that they can like resonate with and associate with, I think is going to continue to drive. And the way I would compare it to is in the 90s, as a young kid, like I would watch basketball, and it was always be like Mike. It was always an association that if I'm in my front yard shooting the basketball, like I'm pretending I'm going to set my goal down to 4 feet, and I'm going to pretend I'm dunking from the free throw line, right? You're emulating this professional athlete that everybody's kind of come to know and love. I think as kids see more of that in soccer, they're going to continue to want to emulate that same thing. Like I can't tell you how many in a given weekend, how many kids you see do the Ronaldo, like, see, you know, they sit there and they kind of emulate what they see on TV. So I think as more kids have those role models to look into, I think the sport's going to continue to grow. And when you have kids that want to be good at something, or they come in from a family, like you might have a dad that never played soccer, but they're an athlete. And if their kid says, well, that's going to be your sport, I'm going to help you with that. Like, I'm going to help you be good at. So now they're seeking out more development, more training, more tournaments, more games. So I think we're going to see a different level of growth in the next 2 years than we probably haven't seen. And it is one of those that somewhat like protected, guarded, recession proof, if you want to call it, where there's few things that people are going to do, and the weekend tournaments are are very much so something that I think a lot of families start to look forward to. And you got people that travel together, they're going to dinner together, and like all of that culture is something that you're starting to see more and more. I do wish we had more games in the weekdays, but your only city, the big cities that are like your Atlantas, your Birminghams, you can achieve that more. But when you're like, especially where we're in rural Florida, Alabama, like you got to travel and you got to go play. So that's essentially those are the markets we look to serve the most. Where you can't do it in your backyard. You gotta drive and go seek out those games.
Well, guys, we are up against it. I knew we would run out of time. I mean, we could talk for days. I'm just going to say this to you. Thank you for the friendship. Without you guys, as far as me getting out of coaching and into sports tourism, you helped not only the city of Foley and that whole South Baldwin area, but you helped me personally, and I appreciate the friendship and can't wait to see you soon down there. And I haven't given up on my idea about being one of those new sports at the conventions. But I need to run some of that through you guys. You're the experts.
And Nick, anytime you want to catch a baseball game,
No, man, hey, love a good baseball game. So I'll keep you in the loop on that. But yeah, we appreciate the time. Looking forward to having you in the backyard here pretty soon, Don. And Zach, thanks for letting us come on and just hang out with y'all for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
So yeah, we'll just continue on then.
Do an intro and then just keep going.
Yeah, I don't even think we need an intro, right? These guys need no introduction, but I guess our audience needs to know who the hell it is we're talking shop with. So I'll let both of you gentlemen introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
You first.
All right, I'm Eric Kightlinger. I own Bama Bounders Gymnastics with my wife, Erin Holdefer Kightlinger, and we run Bama Bounders meets all throughout the state. And this is my father-in-law.
Yeah, Mike Holdefer, related directly to Aaron, indirectly to Eric. I've been in gymnastics, unfortunately, since they were 4 years old. They're 43, so I've been around it for about 39 years. And then about 8 years ago, I was dumb enough to volunteer to be the state director, and been doing that for 8 years. So I've been in the sport for a long, long time.
It's like a trip down memory lane doing this program, part one, part two with Foley. So much history on how I even got down there to where they are today, what David Thompson and his team have done. But there's a component with the Foley Event Center that actually starts with these guys. Of course, we've got long history, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Getting started with the high school football championships. Without them, I don't know where we would have been with the food distribution system that helped us the first year at the stadium. For those who don't know, the Super Six was the Alabama High School Athletic Association football championship, 6 classifications. Now it's called the Super 7. That first year, how we put it together was amazing. I still don't know how we did it, but it was folks like this that helped. We then went from there to unfortunate time of the tornado that I know Mike and Eric will be able to tell stories about that. It was a labor of love for our community. We became really, really close friends. Of course, I left to go to Foley, and I was able to get these incredible folks and their family to come down and give us advice on the needs in an event center of what you really should have. Things simple as breakout space, kitchen, storage space. I mean, I could go on and on. They help that. But then there's another component to them. Mike alluded to it earlier. They're both involved at the highest level in gymnastics, both nationally and within the state. But the business, the Bama Bounders, not only do they teach kids here locally, but they do tournaments here, meets here, and meets around the state. One of those places is Foley, Alabama. So they're going to talk a little bit today about some of the relationships, funny stories, and talk about why Foley is so special to them. And we'll even throw in a little bit about Gulf Shores because there's some great folks down there that helped with their event center in the beginning. They stay at a great place, Sea and Suds. What's the name of the hotel?
Regatta.
The Regatta. They're down there. The food is outstanding. But I'll get off the soapbox. I'll just say this. These are true friends of mine, been friends for years. And like John Guidroz and Lesley Gahagan, without them, I don't know where I would be in the sports tourism world. So guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for the friendship. And I'll turn this thing over and let Zach ask his questions. And you guys can have a blast. And I'm going to drink some of this good beer from Bo Hicks's Druid City Brewing.
Oh, yeah. I'll drink to that as well. And this is the Bo Light Lime. I haven't had this one before, but it's quite tasty. I've alluded a couple times that we should just rename the show Don's Soapbox because it never fails. He gets on it, and he got on it earlier with Lesley, and we appreciate his soapbox rants here for sure. But we just got done talking with John Guidroz and Nick Cooper with Snap Soccer, and I liken them to kind of client zero down there in Foley for Don. They came on kind of in a consultant role when they were opening up the complex. I believe John said 4 years before they even broke ground on their soccer fields. And you guys did something similar. You guys helped Don and the Foley crew kind of point them in the right direction as far as building out a space to host events. Tell me a little bit about those early years down in Foley and the expertise that you guys lent Don and David and his team when they built the Foley complex.
Well, one of the most memorable things I remember is he brought us down there day one, and I don't remember the guy's name, but he goes, "Hey, y'all want to go check out the site?" We're like, "Sure." So we jump on this oversized golf cart. We're wearing polos and stuff because we're expecting to have a nice meeting. So
Yeah.
the CEO guy. So we get on this oversized golf cart, and we are flying through brown dust. There's nothing there, and he's just flying, whipping, turning, saying this is that, this. We are like a reddish brown when he got off that golf cart, and we're spitting clay because it's in our mouths, and that was the most unexpected thing that we did that day. But it was a nice little trip.
We started off in that nice air-conditioned little theater.
Oh, yeah.
Looking at the official presentation and go from that to dirt riding for an hour. It's a great introduction, but we were there on the ground floor.
Right. That's Don in a nutshell. You know, he's I think Lesley and John both alluded to his blue collar roots a little bit. You know, he's not afraid to get his hands dirty and get down there, and you know that's something that I think. Something I admire about Don, and something that I admire about the people in the past. A lot of people in the past that I've worked with, they're not afraid to lead by example and actually get things done. But tell me a little bit more about your experiences in Foley and what you guys continue to do down there with David Thompson and his team.
Well, after we did that little tour, they actually, what I was also not expecting is they brought us into the room with the designers, engineers.
Yeah.
And he literally put their blueprints on the table, flipped it open and said, "Here's the building. What do we need to fix?"
Okay.
And so we went in and was like, "Well, we think you need to do," we looked at it and we're like, "We need this, and this." They took some, they didn't take some.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was pretty amazing when they did that. And then we just kept on going from there. And then we actually were the very first ever event in that facility was Bounders Beach Bash. What year was it?
2017.
2017.
Wow.
And they treat us, I don't want to say like royalty, but they treat us pretty darn good down
Treat us like family.
Yes, exactly.
That's exactly what they said to me.
Literally, I was about to say that's exactly what Christy and Angie and Shelly all said, and David. You know, they said we kind of look at themselves as a family down there on Team Foley, as they call it, but also with the clients and the folks they bring in and those relationships. They really do treat you all like family.
And the big three, the early ones, you've got Bama Bounders, you have Snap Soccer, and then Mike Terrell with archery. I mean, what he's done for archery, they reference you guys and the other two as family.
Yeah.
So,
And we feel that too, because every year we go down with some other friends. We go out for Thanksgiving to stay at the regatta, and we have some other friends whose parents live down there. And so on Thanksgiving Day, we literally will go to their house at about 1, do Thanksgiving. We leave there. We go to Christy's house for little man's birthday party every Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That's what we do. So it's like we're part of the family now.
for those of you out there watching that are in sports tourism, that is the way it's done.
Mm-hmm.
You treat your people like family, not clients. And right there is an example. I'm so proud of my group down there and what David's done. And, you know, they took the baton and they took it up a notch and they kept the family part of it. I'm glad to hear that.
We had people like that in College Station. I'll go on my own soapbox there.
Good.
We had a client in College Station that ran softball tournaments, Cindy Cowart Sports Events. And going in, I just started out there and my boss, Dominique, he was like, hey, he goes, Cindy's a big client. She's very particular. And I mean, he had me nervous. I was like, oh my God, I'm about to meet this lady. And I had a one-on-one meeting with her, and I was nervous as hell. I was like, I can't screw this up. Like, she's been here in Bryan College Station for so long, and we hit it off right away. She made some requests for a bunch of additional signage because that was the first event we hosted out of COVID. And without even asking Dom or Kendra Fry, our CEO, I was like, yes, ma'am, I'll get that done for you. And, I passed the test basically. And to your point about the family ordeal, she's based in Houston, Texas, which is about an hour and change from College Station. And whenever she was coming through town, she would always stop by unannounced. She would bring us, fruit salad. She would bring us baked goods, and it really is kind of like a true. She felt like family. It was like Aunt Cindy was stopping in, and she was great to work with, and that truly is, like Don said, how sports tourism.
And she's a big player in the space.
Big time, absolutely.
Yeah,
and her events hold a lot of weight, and I mean, she brings it in, and she's one of those people that delivers. I think John and Nick talked about that. You get a lot of times you're overpromised and underdelivered. Cindy never would underdeliver on an event. She always did what she said she was going to do, and she expected that things were done that she asked to get done, and we delivered that too.
Just like the other two I mentioned. I mean, they deliver everything they said they would do. They did, and they brought me into their family.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, you got to put on this Super 6. Well, let me give you an idea. And then I learned from that because the very first year, we had a food distribution station, and then we had a drop off. Do you remember the tent? I'm so proud of that first tent. Well, I'm looking out Bryant-Denny Stadium, and I see it going down the road. So we had to go and get the tent to come back. The things that you learn after your first event, you come back and you study up, what are we going to do different? But you know what? The whole process was a blast.
Oh yeah. I learned one thing there too, that high school football coaches can eat. I remember,
especially the offensive line coaches.
My job at Super 6 was to distribute ice, which really wasn't that difficult, except you had to learn all these corridors and passageways that I did not know existed. But at one point, we're in the food distribution center. We'd just taken 100 pizzas to the coach's room, and we get a call. We're out of pizza. I'm like, how can you be out of pizza with 100 pizzas?
It was like a feeding frenzy.
Yeah. Well, I think there were some uncredentialed people in there, for lack of a better term.
Friends and family.
Oh my gosh.
Family. Yes.
Just seeing them and talking a little bit before we got on here, I mean, the memories are coming back. I mean, what we did in the very beginning.
Where's the first meeting? Edelweiss. Chance meeting at breakfast.
Oh my gosh.
You and me and Aaron. And then you said, hey, we can work with Bama Bounders and the gymnastics meets. And then after you saw the food team in operation there, which was one of our, ever since I was a meat director, was my biggest point of emphasis. You've got to feed the coaches.
Learn that from him.
And then, and then you brought us in for Super 6, it's been a great ride.
Wow. And then I know we'll go back to Foley here in a minute, and I want to talk about their brand. I want to talk about any kind of expansion, new places that you're going to go. Definitely want to talk about River Run Park, talk about Northport Shores. Hopefully your involvement will be there to educate like you did in Foley. Really hope that you'll be able to do that. But real quick, Leland Shopping Center. You know, I put that right there. We adopted our son at birth. That is probably the biggest thing in my life is our son. But I put right down there coach of the years and championships and all the things I did in my career is what we did in Leland.
Absolutely.
And we got to be pretty good friends. And what was the drink that kept us rolling?
Killer Buzz.
Stampede.
Yeah. Stampede.
We had a lot of Killer Buzz.
We didn't know
we
what
needed
it was either. We just thought it was another beverage being provided. Do you remember the medic from the National Guard tent coming over and said, "You guys are going to die"? We were driving. Don and I were drinking 4 or 5 a day.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I'm sure it had
what's
400 milligrams of caffeine.
What's the most memorable thing that you remember us cooking on the grill? Because we would cook anything.
2 things. The rabbit burgers. Because remember, Manna Grocery over in Park had lost all their power, so they just literally donated everything they had in the store to us. And you and I are looking at ground rabbit, and we're like, "What the heck do you do with ground rabbit?"
Huh?
Make burgers. That's what we're doing. We're making burgers. They were absolutely fantastic. You remember you took them up to Kristen, and Kristen took a bite and said, "This is great. What is it?" You said, "Rabbit." She goes, "I can't eat both one." And we got the 4 cases of Script A pretzels. And we had to figure out how you're going to cook these on a grill. So we came up with the aluminum pan. And the only issue we had was there was no way to get the salt to stick on it.
Mm-hmm.
So Esther from Edelweiss suggested just taking a paintbrush and a little water and then throwing the salt on.
There you go.
So it stuck. We would send those up to the food tent at Leland, and we would send 30 up, and within 10 minutes, we need more pretzels.
For those of you who don't understand, Leland, there were different hubs around the city during the tornado. Tuscaloosa, April 26, 2011, horrible, devastating tornado, but we rebounded quickly as a city. You got to hand it to the city of Tuscaloosa having the foresight to go to Emmitsburg, Maryland in advance of this tornado. I think it might have been a year or so, and they studied up on what to do. Well, they didn't study up on Leland Shopping Center, did they? But in fairness, we were commended for what we as a ragtag bunch did, and we morphed into something special. We had dignitaries to show up. I'll never forget Charlie Sheen and Joe Namath and our buddy Lance Bass. However, and I will never forget the accolades, the appreciation that was shown by the leadership of Tuscaloosa back then. It was a labor of love for the people who were at Leland. And you and your family and all those others that were there helped so much to do good things for the community, to push out the food to people who needed it. There was a commissary, if you will. There were so many, remember the walls of water? I mean, and the place just kept morphing. My point is this, that so much was given back by so many. We worked hand in hand. The city of Tuscaloosa offered us some of the best cooks that they had at what service was that?
Public Works.
Public Works.
Yes.
My gosh, we made some.
New York.
Oh man, those guys were the best. So, anyways, we got to be fast friends, more so, and then time went on.
Do you remember him showing up morning 2? All of a sudden, we were unloading tractor trailer trucks by hand, including freezer trucks of ice. And all of a sudden, Eric shows up, got a forklift, what? I got a forklift. And I just said, don't tell me how you got it.
Really, all I did is I went over to ABZ Rental and it was like, hey, we're doing this thing over at Leland. Can I borrow a forklift for weeks? I don't know when I'll bring it back. And they're like, you got something to pull it with? I'm like, sure. So they gave me a forklift for an undescript amount of time. And I told them I would be in charge of driving it. Needless to say, the last time I drove a forklift, I was probably 18 working at something like Lowe's. And so it'd been quite a few years since I drove a forklift. And I had to figure that thing out.
Never got to say this, and I'll say it publicly, didn't know that part of it. Thank you, ABZ Rental, for what you did, because tell you what, talk about a lot of manpower moving that stuff, and you came to the rescue. So, another quick story. I know we're going to get back into sports tourism, but real quick, Baumhauer shows up.
Oh my gosh.
You had the Mercedes cooking team. We had our guy from, I'm drawing a blank, from
Athlete's Foot.
Athlete's Foot. St. Simon Island.
Oh, Southern Soul.
Southern Soul. Every chance I get when I go back, I stop at that place. He came in. We even had, do you remember a group that came in and said, hey, we want to support this? It was a group of Muslims. And the guy said, are you coach? I said, yeah. He said, we were told to see you. We want to cook. Absolutely. Where you want to set up? Here's some space. They said, only thing is we have to stop at a certain time where we've got. I said, hey, we had a mixture. We had doing prep work, I think the Baptists. We had, I think, the Methodists that were taking the food out. We had a German connection with you and, of course, with Mercedes. It was a true melting pot and a labor of love that we did for so long, for 2 weeks. And anyways, I'm rambling here, but
that's all right.
We really bonded. Time goes on. Unfortunately, the sports complex was revisited and defeated. I left, and during this period, they're still doing events, and they're adding events, and then they're going to Orange Beach Gulf Shores. Pick it up from there. You guys have been doing great stuff in Orange Beach Gulf Shores, and then I land in Foley, and the discussion started. Take it from there.
Well, when I moved, I didn't move here until 2003 when I got out of the Army. And we ended up buying the gym in 2010. And I always thought, why is there not a meet at the beach? I want to meet at the beach. And so when we finally bought the gym, so in 2011, I guess that was our first year down there, I kept looking every time we'd go on vacation. I found this place called The Wharf. And so we went and visited, and so we started our meet at The Wharf in 2011, and then we kept going, and that space kept shrinking, and our numbers kept growing, and then you actually were kind of a savior in, I need a better space. And so we were supposed to host state meet in that building.
Yes, yeah.
And that blew up in our face, and we ended up in Gulf Shores High School, Middle School.
Oh, yeah,
two
yeah.
gymnasiums.
Yeah.
That was interesting. we made it work. But then you guys came along. You came along, and then we moved into your space. And
Time out. Do you remember going to look at?
Yes.
Foley High School's outdoor
yeah.
facility. That industrial building.
And then there was it Robertsdale?
Robertsdale Civic
somewhere. There was a horse arena.
A horse. We looked at so much, and that place we got so excited because the space was. This is going to be perfect. And then there were columns all over the place.
Yes.
Wasn't it a hurricane shelter?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting.
No, it was. We took a lot of turns trying to figure out where to host state meet, and so we finally figured out that the school bailed us out, and it was an interesting experience that weekend. And so
that's a polite term.
Polite term, yes. And that's where our food distribution really came in handy because we were making food at one spot, sending it here to there, and
literally Cindy and Jamie drove back and forth
a football field
between the football field length between the two buildings.
Wow.
Hospitality, yeah. That was when we said we've got to find a place.
Well, that's more that is sports tourism as well. We talked about what all goes into it, and obviously economic impact's a big part of it, and community. That's why I'm glad we had that conversation, or you guys had that conversation about coming together in the wake of a disaster and forming friendships and being there for the community. But that's also an aspect of sports tourism. But making chicken salad out of chicken shit is a big part of sports tourism and making things work like that. So it all ties in.
I'm so glad you brought that up because again, here, and so quick soapbox, just a small one. Those of you out there watching, don't give up because one facility isn't available.
Yeah.
Stay the course. Do the extra work.
Yeah.
Don't be lazy. Go and talk to the event organizer, get them to buy in, and that you really want it. You're gonna find a place. It's just like the lacrosse tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Our facility wasn't ready. Tapped into the infrastructure down there. We went across the street to a sod farm and put together something temporary.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry.
And that's easier to do when those relationships are there. Right?
Exactly.
When you have that family feeling, or when you have that when somebody goes the extra mile, a previous time, you're willing to take on that. Okay, we'll make this work, knowing that it's going to improve and that it's for the greater good of the community.
But as somebody told me a long time ago, a very wise statement, you're taking your chicken salad out of chicken shit statement, and they said, as long as the folks out there don't know there's a problem back here,
Yep.
you're in good shape.
Oh yeah.
And there are so many incidences, and Aaron and Cindy and I are running the fire extinguisher back there, and everybody, it's a great event. You're like, yeah.
If you only knew. Hey,
It's like a duck on a pond. That's another
That was like the
saying.
Druid City Music Festival. Let me tell you what, my staff was incredible. What we all pulled off, and Cameron Moss, consultant, but we could actually write a book about all the other things.
Yeah.
But you're right. So fast forward a little bit. So you come in, you consult, they build the facility. Of course, I decided to come back home and sit in the CEO chair.
Have they heard that story, by the way?
No, I don't
Okay,
think.
so Don brings us to the place. The building is just about done. And we're sitting here having our meeting about maybe
This
a
is in
month
the mud,
out.
right?
What's that?
That was the day in the mud.
Was it the day in the mud?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we go to sit down to eat. Where are we? Are we at the bowling place?
No, Don never took us to the bowling place.
Okay, well, we're somewhere. David
Sorry,
takes us
David.
to the bowling place.
Sorry, David.
So
It was actually good food.
It is great.
We're at-
So Don told us when we were down there.
The
He was
first
like,
time we went, I'm like, we're going to the bowling alley.
that's what he told us. We were driving around down there in Foley. He goes, that bowling alley right there, some of the best food in town.
It is pretty good. So Don's like, hey, we're going to this restaurant. Meet us there. I'm going to introduce you to some of my people.
Moe's.
We sit down. Was it Moe's?
Moe's.
And the only person there is him and Christy. And so we're literally there like 5 minutes. He goes, hey, it's great to see you. By the way, this is Christy. And I'm leaving. I'm leaving Foley. I'm going to Tuscaloosa, and I've got to go blah, blah. So I'll see y'all later. And so we're sitting.
It wasn't like that.
It was close. And so we're meeting Christy for the first time. We're like, so you're Christy. Hey, how are you? She's like, yeah.
Suffice to say, she's much better looking than Don.
Just a little. And so,
Hey, my team was easy on the eyes
hey,
and
Christy,
smart.
Christy just picked it up, and we ran with it. And that's probably why we spend Thanksgiving at her house every year.
Yeah, it was one of those, I love my time down there, but opportunity of a lifetime to come back home, reinvent myself again, sit in the CEO chair, hopefully make a difference. But let me tell you what, I love my time at Foley. I'm so proud of that project and them. So anyways, I leave, come back. So what did you guys do down there for the city and the area?
We've made millions of dollars is what we've done. Because not only did we host our Bounders Beach Bash every September there, we brought that state meet that we've actually brought different compulsory state in December's and optional state meets in March. So we've done both multiple times. And then we brought Excel regionals with 1,800 kids
Wow.
down there. And Did we also brought a 6, 7, 8 regional that had about
last year
1,500 kids.
Wow.
Just like Mike Terrell and archery, just like John Guidroz and soccer, you need a full-size regulation soccer complex to be able to do those big events, not short fields, full-fledged soccer complex. Here's my take on this. You hopefully will help do the same thing, if allowed, up here in Northport. You could have been doing that years ago here in Tuscaloosa, okay? Just like John Guidroz could have done, and all those other soccer groups out there could have done here if we had a soccer complex. Yes, now I'm really on my soapbox. So I'm going to tell you what. I know that what Northport is doing with the city with Birch Dalton, with the River Run Park, hopefully you'll have a seat at the table and you'll help to educate them on what you helped to create for Foley to be done here. And I'm not holding back. I'm just telling you the straight scoop, because a lot of you know, the end of the month, I'm heading down to Lillian, Alabama, where we're going to relocate. And maybe I'll get into a little bit of a semi-retirement. I'll continue to support Northport's efforts here. I can consult from wherever. But I hope and pray that you guys will be part of helping to design when the indoor comes forward, to be able to help them like you did in Foley. Because I'm sure that there's still a couple little tweaks that you would like down there. Just like, any project, you have a wish list, you've got a want list, and then you have a list where, hey, we've got to do value engineering to be able to make our budget. But down the road, I know that there's 2 wings still that can be developed on the Foley project off that event center.
Well, I'll be honest, and I did this interview with them down there in 2020 when COVID was hit. And as state director, I've got a business that sort of got me into gymnastics. I was one of 2 dads that didn't want to sit in the bleachers. So we said, oh, we'll do computers for you, no problem. Little did I know it developed into a 26-year deal. But we were literally getting off the interstate in Birmingham to do a huge meet at the Legacy Arena when COVID hit. And they said, turn around, don't come in. Mm-hmm. Well, on the way back, 400 phone calls. And I'm thinking, what are we going to do with this season? Nobody knew. Mm-hmm. Well, all during the summer, we were in contact with and Foley was having events in the event center. They had all the protocols in place. We go down, decide we're going to do Beach Bash, which was actually the first competition anywhere in the country that season. Wow. Down in Foley. They had the protocols in place. Everybody felt safe. Everybody's ready to get back to something.
Yep.
All right. Come a couple weeks later, the gym that was going to host our state championships that year in December pulls out. Not because of COVID, because of the cost of their facility. But that's fine. Eric and Bama Bounders jumped in and says, we'll do it in Foley. And so I'm doing an interview right before state championships. And one of the questions was, why Foley? And it's hard to put into words exactly, but almost everything that we've not necessarily asked for, but said would be great, have been provided for us.
Go ahead and clip that there, Jacob. All right. We need to just send that down there to David and his team. Why Foley? Because they do what we want and what we need them to do.
And I mean, that was the gist of the interview. I mean, first year we had chairs. Chairs are not ideal for gymnastics because if you're in the 3rd row,
mm-hmm.
you can't see over the 6'7" guy in the 1st row that's watching. So they came in with 3-tier bleachers. Well, when we got to the regional championship phase, that's not going to cut it. They're not going to give you a bid. And so they went out and bought 6 huge sections of 20-row high bleachers that roll in and roll out. Sound was an issue. Sound bouncing off walls. You've got two competitions going on at the same time. They went out and bought a $15,000 speaker sound system that doesn't bounce. You know, anything that we sort of, it's like, okay, we started using projectors instead of score flashers. Well, we'll buy a huge screen for you.
Wow.
And there you go.
And that's servicing.
Again,
Yeah.
any city that wants to get in, is thinking about getting into sports tourism. That is how it's done. You listen to your clients, you leave your ego at the door, you listen to the boots on the ground that tell you what their needs are. Because guess what? It's very competitive out there. They can take their events to other places. Foley was all in. When we said Team Foley and it caught that phrase, they truly, from the top to the bottom, and they wanted to make sure that those event organizers were listened to, catered to a little bit, made to feel like family, because, like Eric said, millions of dollars of economic impact. Don't think for a second, Mike Terrell and ASA Archery and all the events that they do down there, he didn't come back after the first or the second or third event and say, hey, we want to bring you more numbers, we need this. Well, guess what? Mayor, council, David Thompson, Lesley Gahagan, they came back and they delivered. Same thing. You know, I'm so proud. I'm actually getting kind of goosebumps here because I'm hearing some of this stuff about the early part, but the baton was handed off and they have really, truly taken it up a notch. The bleachers, we were down there a month ago and I was talking with David about the bleachers. You know, we didn't have the retractable in the beginning. Then they did the chairs. Then they did the threes. Now they've got the great bleachers. They listen because they want to make sure that their organizers are taken care of.
Right.
Well, the first question you always asked, and I remember this from our very first meeting. What do you need? You know, not, oh, we can't do that. You know, and it may not be immediate. I mean, I'm sure Eric will tell you, there's times that we've talked with David down there about something. You know, we may not be able to get to it now, but we're, you know, it's on the, you know, it's, at least you know you're being heard.
Yeah.
And there are places that he and I both talked to that you walk out saying, we're not doing it there.
Yeah.
You know, because they don't.
And servicing, maybe this is a soapbox as well. And you know, I think things hold more weight when Don says them because he's been in the industry and was in the industry for much longer than I was, my stint in Texas. But the servicing component, what you can do for your organizers, what you can do for your clients and make them feel like family, that's something that any DMO, regardless of budget, can do to set them apart. Regardless of facility size, to set them apart is make people feel welcome, make them feel at home, make them feel like they matter, like their event is the Super Bowl, like their event is, you know, the Masters, the World Cup. Go that extra mile, and it's an investment that's going to pay off tenfold.
Well, your relationships down there paid off the first year we had regionals, because one of the requirements for the regionals is that the scoring, not the scoring table per se, but the head table has to be raised. Well, they had used all the scaffolding for the awards stands. So they're like, well, you know, don't worry. Well, they called Orange Beach, wasn't it?
Yes.
Called Orange Beach. Orange Beach said, yeah, we'll bring them up, set them up for you. So, you know, all those relationships that you started building down there continue to pay off.
And we actually have I don't know what they call them, but we always have a meeting about a month out from our meets with them. We always do it over Zoom, and I'm like, nothing's changed. Well, we still got to have this meeting, but nothing's changed. You know what we're going to do. And so, but they're always like, well, we're going to have this meeting. It's like, all right, fine. And then they're always, throughout the entire meeting, what else do you need? What else do you need? What else do you need? Anything else? What else do you need? And that just, I don't get that anywhere else.
Yeah.
And you were talking about getting stuff if you need it. There's been locations that people have told me about, hey, this meet just pulled out of here. This meet just pulled out of here. You need to go host a meet here. Go host a meet there. And I'll go to the facility and I'll look and I'm like, no, they're a nickel and dime facility.
I figured out quickly why they left.
I'm not going there and paying $10 a chair $50 a table, $100 per outlet. I was like, I'm not doing that. I want to go to the facility that's going to treat me as a whole and not as individual transactions.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because that just bites me the wrong way.
Well, while you guys were talking, I was thinking a couple things. Number one is, again, I'm talking to those out there that are thinking about really getting involved in this business. What's the latest? Any idea what the latest numbers are? What they're projecting that sports industry is in youth sports? Is it $37 billion?
It's in the billions. Yeah, it's well into the billions, tens of billions.
Number one, if you have an expert on staff, listen to your boots on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, if you think you've got boots on the ground, research them to find out if they really are. Number two, John Schmieder and the Huddle Up Group, amazing. Get them to come in and tell you what you don't want to know. I mean, what you need to know.
Yeah.
Which, to me, the Huddle Up Group, they'll come in and do a study. They'll give you information. Sports facility companies, if you're talking about building a sports complex, at least get them to come in and give you an evaluation. What's so frustrating for me sometimes is if you have people within your own organization who might not be experts but pretty close to it, why don't you listen to them?
Mm-hmm. Another Don soapbox.
Yeah. Wait till our last show. So, anyways, again, these folks right here, my friends, my family, what you have done down there, you have helped South Baldwin County in so many ways. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do going forward here. I mean, we know that Birch Dalton and company with Bullpen and Warrior Baseball and all the folks here in the city of Northport, they've got those fields already laid out. They're already booking events. It's going to be amazing. Mm-hmm. What Visit Tuscaloosa will be able to do to help to go buy some events for them as well, what I'm doing consulting, they're going to be killing it. But going forward with that box, with that event center, whatever it's going to be called going forward, I can't recommend highly enough to listen to your event organizers, whether it's volleyball, gymnastics, basketball. Those are the people that will give you what's good in other cities, what's bad in other cities, so that you guys can corner the market here locally. And I hope that that's going to happen here as we go forward with Northport Shores.
Absolutely.
I have had one interview. It's been a while, but I did have an interview with one of the Northport folks about it. And I'm working with the new guy here in Tuscaloosa, the sports and tourism place.
Robbins Bonner is sharp.
And so he is supposed to be helping them however much he can. And he's talked about getting us back in with them before stuff really goes, because they're still talking about design and stuff. And so I was like, yep, we need, like Foley, we need to be in on the ground floor so we know what you're doing, because if your building's too small, I can't use it.
Right.
And right now we're in a building called the Belk Center. Great building for park and rec. It's two basketball gyms. It's got breakout spaces. It works for a smaller meet.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you want to go and host states, it gets crowded. When you want to host national events like we do with the Crimson Classic, in conjunction with Alabama gymnastics meets, and you want to have 600, 800, 1,000 competitors, then you start scrambling because you don't have enough room for awards.
Yeah.
And then you have spectators who want to come in during the event, before the event, stay after the event. Now you have 3 sets of crowds in that one lobby, or walking the track, sitting on the sidelines of a basketball court. It gets really cramped, and then people start complaining.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here feeding the coaches as much as we can to keep them and want them to come back, but there's only so much you can do. So if you build a building too small, you can't fit your stuff and awards and your vendors.
Well, not to mention fire code and the city gets involved, and
You know what Eric just described right there? This is an event organizer. He is in the business to A, make money, B, the only way you make money is if you have happy customers. And that's what they do. And John does the same thing, and Mike Terrell does the same thing. So what we need to understand is if you listen to them, they're not giving you pie in the sky wild ideas. They're giving you ideas to help better the event, to get more numbers, to have a, what we talked about earlier today, experience.
An experience, yeah, absolutely.
It's an experience. So anyway.
Well, I mean, as state director, I get calls from a lot of our clubs. We want to host a competition, but we don't have a place to do it. You know, now Coleman's come online. I don't know if it's online yet, but they've got the Omniplex up there. Eric's working with their folks to help them host their first meet up there. And actually they're doing, 26 optional state meet up there in the new. So from a Tuscaloosa point of view, there's another event that could have been here, but it's not. You know,
And that's a shame considering you guys are here.
We're
You know, you're local.
And why is that? Is that because the folks here look at it like, hey, we've got all these para facilities, these boxes, which are great to service the local community.
They're great.
Local community is different than the sports tourism market. So you need bigger, one space. The days of parceling out events all over the place, parents don't want to do that.
Right.
They want to go to one standalone facility.
And event organizers don't want to do that either. Right. Because they can go somewhere else where they don't have to do that. And
They're
it makes it
called
easier.
rec centers for a reason.
Yeah.
Amen.
And I'm a parent to kids who do sports. And this summer, I have a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old who play big-time travel baseball. And so we're going to be doing exactly what you said, going here and there. And then there's one tournament that I already know, I think my oldest is playing in Atlanta, and they just say Atlanta, where there's this other tournament that's PBR, and they're like, we're at Lake Point. So when they say we're at Lake Point, we're at Lake Point. When they say Atlanta, we could be an hour south, an hour north.
Yeah.
And so it's like, great, well, where do we stay? And so that's what we really like about when they say, hey, you're at Lake Point, sweet.
Yeah.
But then they're like, oh, but we have another one. Oh, you're at Hoover. But are we at the Hoover Met? Or are we at Hoover High School? Or are we at Spade Park? Are we at Oak Mountain?
Lake Point is Bobby Cox's old facility, and it was massive. Down in Foley, as we were getting ready to go, research was done there twice, as was Graham Park.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I visited 96 facilities from coaching to Foley to today. So you know what? He speaks, they both speak my language. I understand. It's about research. And you know what? I'm going to save some of that for our next show.
There we go. We can have a whole research segment, huh? And
benchmarking. I can't wait.
I'm looking forward to it. I do want to, I feel like we haven't talked. I think we're pushing the time. I want to be respectful of all of our time, but I don't know if we've spoken enough about or given you guys a chance to speak enough about Bama Bounders as a whole and your organization, what you guys do locally. And obviously we've talked a little bit about the events that you guys have put on all over, but just, I'll give you guys the floor. Tell us everything that folks need to know about Bama Bounders and who's involved and how to get involved, things like that.
Well, Bama Bounders is a family company. So my wife was actually a Bama Bounder when she was a kid. And then as she grew up on the high level, as a high level gymnast at Bama Bounders, David and Sarah Patterson owned Bama Bounders, and they were the co-head coaches at Alabama. Well, my wife had the opportunity to be an Alabama gymnast, win a national championship in 2002. And then she decided, due to shoulder injuries, she was going to retire and from being a gymnast. And so she became the assistant coach at Bama Bounders. And then a year later, she got promoted to interim head coach. And then one of their things is they said they wanted a coach that's taken a kid to nationals. Walked in Ashley Ford. Ashley Ford came out of Panama City, Beach, Florida. Aaron took her to nationals that first year. So they said, you want the job? My wife took it. And so she got the job in 2000, that was 2003. we ended up buying the gym in 2010, and I needed somebody to, well, my wife was running the team program. To be honest, she really didn't want to buy it. She's like, that's just more headache. I just want to coach. I don't want to do everything else. Like, fine, I'll do everything else. You run the team program. And then I was like, I can't do all this. And then I was like,
bit off more than you could chew. Huh?
Yes. I was like, hey, Cindy's his wife, Aaron's mom. I'm like, hey, do you want to come and help run the front gym, the gym with me? She's like, was that before or after she retired? I think she just retired from nursing.
That's when you stole her from me, because she was going to work for me, because you took Aaron.
Yes, I did, because Aaron was working for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stole both of his employees. And so Cindy came in and started helping run the gym. And then we started branching out. Cindy ended up moving over to running the front desk area. And then we were right down the street over next to Dollar General. The building's no longer there because there's a bridge.
Because the overpass came through.
Yep. And then we left there and went, 2 spaces next door.
Yeah.
And then we left there, and now we're in Northport, Alabama, right next to Irvin's, at the corner of Lee and McFarland. And we really like being in Northport. But now Cindy is still in charge of the front desk. I don't really do anything at the gym except I do the business stuff, do payroll, pay the bills. And then they're like, hey, Eric, this isn't working. I need you to come here and fix it. And then I'm like, but you said you didn't want me in the gym. Just get over here and fix this. All right, fine.
Do what the wife says, right?
Yes. And then Aaron's actually now in charge of the entire gym. And it drives her nuts. But for us, owning Bama Bounders isn't just about gymnastics. It's about giving back to the community, giving back to the kids, giving back to the coaches. Our little slogan that we put on everything, oh, dang, I don't see it every day. I forgot what it was.
Building champions? Building
champions in everything you do. And so we don't want to just build, champion gymnasts. Yeah, that's great and wonderful. But we want to build up these kids into champions in life. These coaches, how to be champions in parenting. We've got so many kids that are now married with kids that Aaron coached that will literally have asked Aaron to be at their weddings.
Wow.
Hey, we're having a kid. Come and see our kids.
Right.
Hey, we're
sounds like Dave and Sarah Patterson.
Yeah.
You know?
Taught by the best, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And hey, I'm having family issues. Aaron, I need some help.
Yeah.
And so that's what Aaron does, is she continues to give back. She even has coaches that they might have only coached for us for a year, and they now live out of state. And Aaron literally, about a month ago, got a text from one of those girls saying, thank you. You taught me everything I know, and I appreciate everything you've done for me. And I remember there's this other coach. He coaches in college gymnastics. He came in just looking for a job. And Aaron goes, you want to coach team? He goes, I've never coached team. She goes, I don't care. And so she basically taught him everything he knew about coaching gymnastics, girls gymnastics, because he was a boy gymnast.
Yeah.
And she'll get texts from him still. Thank you for everything you've done to get me to where I am, because he went from us to coaching in Alabama as like a volunteer assistant, strength coach, to going on and coaching other places. He actually met his wife at the gym. They were both coaches.
Wow. It comes back to our talk about family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of which, I want to say thanks to you and to Cindy for not only those two girls, those exceptional athletes and people, friends, but also for this guy too, because I tell you what, he's a dynamo. I mean, and he comes into a place and he is able to quickly evaluate, but he's also able to roll the sleeves up and get a forklift. How he pulled that off, that was a great story today. But I just want to say thank you for not just our friendship, but for what you've done for two communities. And I'm sure there's more out there, but especially your area here in West Alabama, but also South Alabama area and South Baldwin County, specifically Foley and Orange Beach Gulf Shores. So I appreciate it. And off air, we'll have a couple Lance Bass stories, won't we?
Appreciate your time, guys. It was great getting to know you.
Thank you.
Chatting with you guys. Absolutely.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, likewise.
God, this was good.
Lance Bass.
Well, Don, I'm going to make this short and sweet, but this is a continuation of our Foley episode. There was just too much to talk about in one episode. Obviously, we were down there at the beginning of March, and we got to meet, David and Christy and Shelly and Angie, and enjoyed, some great drinks at Baumhauer's. Got to tour the facility that you built. I needed the tour. Certainly, you didn't. And it was phenomenal, but there were some folks that we left out that we couldn't meet with in person. Lesley Gahagan is one of those folks down there, and she joined us today virtually. And then we were joined, of course, by John Guidroz and Nick Cooper with Snap Soccer, and then we wrapped it up with Eric Kightlinger and Mike Holdefer. And I will say this is maybe the most informative episode that we've shot. I mean, you're going to learn something if you watch both these episodes.
I hope the folks here locally will watch the show, and I'll leave it at that.
Any folks in particular they're doing, or?
We'll bring that up on the next show.
Leadership, I'll leave it at that, huh?
This was a great show. I mean, I'm so proud of my team down there in Foley. I'm so proud of what David Thompson has done, and the elected officials have continued. But these event organizers, which you heard, this was a one-on-one of what to do, how to do it.
Absolutely. And, I want to, all these stories that get brought up and some of the questions, the way we phrase them, it's always like, oh, tell us about, your work with Don and what Don did for Foley. And, that's a natural part of it because you were down there at the very beginning. You did kick it all off, but I don't want to take away from David and his team that what they're currently doing. And you've mentioned it several times. They took the baton and ran with it, and they are kicking ass.
They are
down there in Foley, Alabama. And I just want to set aside, the fact that it's not the Don show. He's very adamant that it's not the Don show.
Nope.
What the folks are doing in Foley, Alabama, David, Christy, Angie, Shelly, I know we're leaving a bunch of people out, Rhett, they are doing a true first-class job. And it was a privilege to go down there and see the facility firsthand. It's a privilege to get to know those folks. And I certainly learned a lot about about sports tourism. I made a bunch of notes in my notebook as we talked to these guests today. And you guys are going to enjoy the show. So I'll just shut up, and we're going to drink some beers here and have a great day. But yeah, this is an informative show for sure.